of how far we have accomplished the targets that we have set. And as to our targets, how far this accomplishment of the targets are doing in terms of the standard that is set for a state university or a higher education institution. We know that when we talk of a university, it's not just about teaching, but we need also to be at par with the standards, not only in the Philippines, but in the international level, how we are doing in terms of research and innovation. And from the outputs of the research and innovation, how are we contributing to the productivity of the industry? How are we contributing to the productivity of the local government units so that in the end, we can contribute to the achievement of giving a beautiful and happy life for everyone in this country, or at least in the Caraga region. So we hope to achieve this in just half day, and we are happy to have with us a resource person who has been working in the area of assessment and measuring how the higher education institutions are doing in the area of research, innovation, and extension, and compare this to the standards. In fact, in the IRIS, they said what gets measured gets managed. So that is why we would be very happy if you can contribute to the discussion, because it is only through seeing where we are wanting that we can do also anything that we can contribute to make or to achieve the targets that we set, not only for this year, but also in the coming years, because we really wanted to make a difference, not only here in the Caraga region, not only here in the Philippines, but at least in the ASEAN region. So with that, thank you very much. And I'm happy to see that almost everyone are already here. I think some others are still not opening their laptops, their computers, because it's raining very hard today, this morning. So thank you again, and good morning, everyone.
Thank you, Ma'am Wang, for giving us a very clear rationale of the activity. So this activity wouldn't be complete without the message from this very important person. Ladies and gentlemen, to give us an opening message and to introduce to us the resource person of today's activity, may we call on our very own president, the ever dynamic Dr. Anthony M. Penaso. Hello, sir.
Our highly esteemed research speaker, Dr. Napoleon Juanillo Jr., founder and convener of the Institutes for Research, Innovation, and Scholarship, our Vice President for Research, Innovation, and Extension, who is behind this activity today, CSU Cabadbaran City Chancellor, Dr. Marilyn B. Castillo, college deans and directors, other officials of the university, center directors, participants, friends, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning and a very Merry Christmas to one and all. At the outset, I would like to welcome everyone to this 2020 Research, Innovation, and Extension Year-End Research Assessment. This activity aims to review the accomplishments against the goals and targets and to document the practices in achieving the target plans. It is also a venue to celebrate successes and to learn from lessons for the continued improvement in the operation of our research, innovation, and extension centers. The success of any research, innovation, and extension program or project relies so much on its implementation, but effective implementation is strengthened and provided guidance through monitoring and evaluation. The importance of assessment or evaluation can never be underestimated for RIA programs to succeed and to truly bring about change in our communities through the delivery of research and extension services towards better quality of life. For research, innovation, and extension programs to truly succeed and become sustainable, assessments like this, that what we're doing today, should be given utmost consideration. Assessment is always, no, it's not only a year end, but an ongoing process, no, of gathering, analyzing, and reflecting on evidence to make informed and consistent judgments future performance, particularly in the area of research, innovation, and extension. So we should not think that assessment is only year end and a year end activity, but is an ongoing process. With your presence and active participation today, I hope that this exercise will be successful, engaging, and meaningful. Well, my role today is twofold. I am done with a brief opening message. My other role is to introduce our research speaker. I'm so glad I got the opportunity to introduce him because he is one sterling leader and a progressive thinker who has influenced a lot in the areas of higher education, research, innovation, and extension. He has not only inspired and influenced local and international institutions, but individuals as well, including me. Our research speaker, ladies and gentlemen, obtained his undergraduate education from the Ateneo de Manila University and his Master of Science and Doctor of Philosophy degrees in Agricultural Extension from Cornell University in New York, which is one of the Ivy League institutions in the US. He was an assistant professor at the College of Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences in USA and at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. He was twice a recipient of competitive research grants from the Illinois Council for Food and Agricultural Research. Dr. Juanillo has done extensive research consulting work globally with the World Health Organization, United Nations Fund for Population Activities, the UNICEF, International Service for the Acquisition of Agri-Biotech Applications, United States Department of Agriculture, Sanofi Pasteur Paris, and the Acute Respiratory Infectious Vaccines, or ARIVAC Consortium, with the National Institute of Public Health in Finland, University of Colorado, USA, Sanofi Pasteur in France, the University of Queensland School of Public Health in Australia, and the United States Agency for International Development, where he served as chief of party. In government, Dr. Juanillo, as we all know, was Director 4 of the Office of Planning, Research, and Knowledge Management of the Commission on Higher Education. He is currently the Innovation and Competitiveness Advisor of the Department of Trade and Industry and Senior Science, Technology, and Innovation Advisor of the USAID's TRI. An entrepreneur, he is President and Chief Executive Officer of the Access Health Hospital, the Access Health Heart Institute and Catheterization Laboratory, and the Institutes for Wellness and Health Innovation. He also serves as Chairman of the Board of Access Health Incorporated. Is the founder of the New Fields STEM schools, offering a distinct basic education program in science, technology, engineering, entrepreneurship, and mathematics from kindergarten through grade 12. Just recently, he set up the Institutes for Research, Innovation, and Scholarship. The IRIS is a privately run R&D organization which aims to harness Philippine intellectual capital to create R&D investments through solutions-driven platforms in research and innovation. As I have said, I am one of those our speaker has immensely influenced. And I was a participant of a program run by the IRIS. There's a presidential leadership program. And I'm so thankful that I have gained so much knowledge. And the very main focus of that presidential leadership program was on research and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege and honor to introduce our research speaker for this year-end assessment, Dr. Napoleon Juanillo Jr.
Mute
Sir
po
Nap, you are
sir.
muted.
Totally forgot. And good morning, President Ton, and thank you very much for the kind introductions. To Vice President Wang for the invitation, to my esteemed friends and colleagues and officials of Caraga State University. Thank you again for inviting me and for not getting tired of me. May I ask, please, for a screen sharing of my slide?
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Can I ask for a screen share, please?
Yes, sir, for a while.
Thank you.
You can now share your
Uh,
presentation, sir.
okay. Thank you very much again, President Tuan. And President Tuan is not just a very esteemed SUC president, but also a very good friend and certainly, one of the brainy SUC presidents we have. And so I think the admiration is certainly mutual. I belong to an organization right now which I founded with a group of friends called the Institutes for Research, Innovation, and Scholarship. And I think President Ton is in this picture as well. This was the very, very first conference that we held at the Ateneo Rockwell. The Institutes for Research, Innovation, and Scholarship is a private educational research and scientific organization seeking to create pathways for collaboration among Filipino researchers, educators, innovators, and scholars in science, technology, engineering, agrofisheries, and mathematics. Our vision is collaborative and borderless communities of Filipino researchers, innovators, and scholars working together for the common good. And our mission is to harness Philippine intellectual talents and resources, the present company that I'm talking to very much included, in pursuit of solutions for the common good. Um, we were formed partially because we were also kind of goaded by this senior mentors, Dr. Angel Alcala, the national scientist for marine science. Dr. William Padulina, as you very well know, is a former DOST Secretary and Deputy Director General of ERIE. Dr. Esther Garcia, former CHED chairperson and now president of the University of the East, the current Secretary of Agriculture, William Dar, and the former Secretary General of the Philippine Commission of the UNESCO. So a lot of conversations with our senior advisors actually led this group of friends to kind of bravely and courageously set up this very new organization and includes CP David, as you very well know, and you've worked with him as a former executive director of the OST Pashired, Dr. Eva Maria Cochonco de la Paz, the executive director of the National Institutes of Health, Dr. Gani Padulina, the director for R&D of Pascual Pharma Corporation, Dr. Raymond Tan, one of the country's top-notch scientists and highly cited author and vice chancellor for De La Salle University, and Dr. Al Serafika, corresponding member of NAST, one of our few scientist entrepreneurs, Jinky Bornales, a friend of many, a physicist and currently vice chancellor of MSU IIT, and Dr. Lawrence Ilag, a molecular biologist, also a lawyer specializing in scientific patents. And so we've always been working together, and part of it drinking together, and hence we formed the IRIS. At the initial years or months, we kind of just had all of this mentoring workshops for various scientists and researchers. The last one of which was for the National Institutes of Health, about 1,000 of them convening in Manila. We also had the Path to University 4.0 last year in Cebu, and which was attended by over 30 presidents and chancellors from both public and private universities. And here, President Toan Penaso at the Presidential Leadership course, one of the pioneering courses that we have for a very select group of presidents, both from private and public universities. And we're kind of very, very proud. We're actually learning a lot as well from our partners. One of the things that I must encourage Caraga State is to get engaged with us in the digital commons, which we are launching this coming January 2021. The digital commons is for free. It's a free service by the IRIS. The idea being is that we provide your scientists, researchers, innovators, students, and faculty with a platform to showcase to the whole world exactly what Caraga State is doing. So, to our esteemed officials, if you are interested, just think of it as a metaphorical, how do you call this, exhibition of everything that you're proud of. If you're also thinking of a journal that you wish to kind of incubate and let's say journey towards indexing by Scopus. You can also be part of Digital Commons, and we will provide you with editorial services, link you up with various other global editors who might just be interested in collaborating with you. So we believe that every Filipino talent is worth the stage, and hence I think the Digital Commons that we're doing for everyone. Right now, there are digital commons for the La Salle and Ateneo. The Manila, there's none, not even for UP or for any SUCs. So this is really a chance for Caraga State, for the things that you're doing, to kind of talk to us and see if we can give you, I should say, a center stage or a viable stage in the digital commons. And by the way, we wish to announce that we've already posted it in our FBs that because it's very difficult for universities and colleges to have annual subscription to Science Direct, as you very well know, it would cost a soup 10 to 15 million pesos a year to subscribe. We are now the sole distributor of Elsevier products in the Philippines. And so we're going to bring you Science Direct at a very affordable price. It's at 1999 per card. You can have unlimited screen time once you enroll. But the thing is that you're able to download 4 journals regardless of the journal source and the journal price. As you very well know, if you don't have a subscription, or if an institution doesn't have a subscription, the journal article can cost as much as $49 and at least $19. So this one, we provide every researcher, scientist, and student a viable way to engage with the whole world by really making sure that it is accessible to every Filipino scientist and researcher. And so currently, only De La Salle University and Ateneo de Manila have annual subscriptions and sometimes intermittent as well to Science Direct. And of course, there's UP and the UST, but then again, we're talking of a number of stakeholders, faculty, researchers who might just benefit from this one. So talk to us about this and that we can actually make things even easier for every soup to have access to these global resources. So like I've said, excellence finds a voice is our tagline, and so I think the present company, which features a lot of great, excellent work, is so much welcome to be highlighted in the platforms that we're establishing under IRIS. We're all in this together, and as a private company, working with Caraga State is something that we welcome a lot. Incidentally, my present connections and engagement is still very much active. I continue to work with USEC Gav and USEC Brenda of the DOST, in particular with SecMon and the DTI, USEC Fita and Director General Roel Barba of IPOFIL. This photo was taken with the late Rick Rotoras of PASUC and USTP on our visit to the United States to take a look at how the National Science Foundation works, how the NASA works, and how Silicon Valley works. And so this was the beginning of, I should say, the binds that never seem to fray. And so I'm so happy to also report to you some of the things that we're doing. In fact, I think tomorrow we have the Fab Lab Network webinar, and so I think I've posted it. Dr. Ton, this is a chance for me to also a little bit introduce myself personally. I've always been kind of talking about all these graphs and statistics about higher ed, but on the personal side, one of the things that I did coming back to the Philippines about 12 years ago was establish the Access Health. And you know, this was a dream that I kind of sold to the doctors. And so this was 10 years ago when we inaugurated it together with the then mayor of Naga, Jesse Robredo, and that we had the, what do you call this, the Philippine Magical Singers giving us a concert soon after the inaugural events. This year we celebrated 10 years, and so I'm so happy to share with you some of the pictures that we had. This was just last Saturday, celebrating the 10th anniversary and going on to the 11th. You know, but one of the things, President Ton, that I forgot when I opened the building is that I forgot to put in a marker, you know? And so it was just last Saturday that we finally put in the official marker for the building. And so that was some fanfare that we had. And also, more than the marker, one of the things that I want to share with you is that look at this little baby. You know, this baby was born in the hospital, and the parents named him Napoleon. Can you imagine that? So it's more than the marker, more than the building. Then this little lady here, you know, with my wife. My wife was the one who delivered these babies. Was named Access. She was named Access. So her name is Access Salcedo. And so she was born 10 years ago. So these are some of the sidelights of life apart from being an academic. So I just really want you to also know that these are things that I enjoy doing. Okay, this is the Border Makers Without Borders Fab Labs with SecMon tomorrow. So if you do have time, I'm pretty sure Jeffrey will be there, but certainly this is something to look forward to. It's the launch of the Fab Labs and Makerspace networks. Another thing too, another sidelight of my life is that I cook and bake a lot, and which my wife loves, and so that's me constantly tinkering in my kitchen, and so that's just to let you know that I do have a life outside the things that I'm engaged in. So, talking about this now, we go now to Sharpening the Saw, Caraga State University's Reflections and Responses to Global Metrics of Research and Extension. This was most the indicative title or topic that was given to me by Vice President Wang. And so let me just start by saying that to introduce all of us, which I am pretty sure the present company already knows, the normative framework of the research innovation continuum. You know, we've always been talking about research. Certainly, research involves researchers like us, scientists, and in all stages of their research career, early career to established careers. But the idea being is to be able to produce no knowledge, no matter how small, for as long as it contributes to the building blocks of knowledge. The manifestations of this, as we all know, can be traditionally in terms of publications, but then again, we also know that because research is such a dynamic activity, that there are also processes there that need to be documented, we need to be alert to the changes in method, to new ways of knowing, so to speak. We also produce materials and technologies and certainly know-how, new capabilities, etc. So these things ought to be part and parcel of, I should say, the Caraga State's documentation. Apart from reporting the things that we have written about through journal publications, through highly indexed journals. We also have to kind of put some emphasis on processes, materials, technology, the innovation that came about as a result, and the new skills that we have seen in ourselves as researchers. So those things are very important. Um, then, of course, there's the whole knowledge transfer activities, so that when we do research, it's so dynamic that people listen to us, and through listening they kind of consult us. They say that, what's this new thing that I've heard from you. Eventually it spills into contract researching, collaborative research, even spin outs, and of course the most immediate manifestation is teaching. These are some of the low lying knowledge transfer activities that we do know. Classroom events or conferences. Then, of course, at a larger scale, networks within Caraga, outside Caraga, and of course, internationally. Then the other part of the dynamic of the research process is that it is so iterative. Yes, we get to know, but also we get to know that we want to know more, and so we go back to the first stage again. But the other dimension that we kind of forget is that there is sometimes an economic or a material return to the knowledge generation process. And hence, I think you see their income, which for me is just metaphorical for resource generation. And hence, I think part of the whole connect that we will have to communicate about research is that it indeed results in some sort of an economic activity, in some sort of a civic or activity. To begin with, research can indeed have some impact on the way government, whether LGU or national legislators, make policies or ordinances or regulations. So it can inform that. And if it's very well informed, it can indeed make life easy for everyone. It can inform the decisions of companies, big or small, or even small or medium enterprises. It can inform the decisions of spinouts or even startups or even non-commercial companies such as civic society organizations. And so I think part of the role of the researcher is to be able to communicate the end-to-end influence of research, that it doesn't stop with publication, it doesn't stop with teaching, it doesn't stop with just coming up with new methods, but it spills over, to families, to individuals, to communities, to societies, and even the whole nation. So there's got to be a way for us to be much more ambitious in the way we talk of our role as a researcher. And hence, I think we say that if we do situate research in such context, then we can say that researchers generate jobs, researchers generate new products, researchers generate new services, researchers generate new revenues, researchers can inspire new R&D, can inspire turnover of even newer products and services. So there's an economic impact, there's a civic impact, there's a social impact. A lot of these things will have to be part and parcel of how we talked about research and innovation. So to talk about research, mainly in terms of metrics, number of publications, number of this, I think this is important. But equally important is to take a look at this in terms of the whole knowledge supply chain of research. And I think that's part of the reason why when Senator Villar said, baliw na baliw tayo sa research, I think part of the blame lies in the research community because they're unable to really communicate, promote, enlighten the rest of our partners and stakeholders about the supply chain of knowledge generation. the value chain of knowledge generation. So all of these things will have to be now put in mind when we think of strategies for research and innovation in Caraga State. But the thing is that, as I've said, are we all on the same page on the research and innovation culture? Are we all on the same page when we talk about this? Because there is certainly some data that we need to attend to and that should alert us about some of the deficits that we may have to fill in this continuum. Let's take a look at some of these things. Okay. We have rejoiced a little bit about the Global Innovation 2020 results because we ranked 50th now from 54th of last year. As I know many of you are familiar with the GII, it basically measures the country's index in terms of the innovation inputs and the innovation outputs. And there are all of these seven pillars or seven key indices that they're looking at. Institutions, human capital and research, infrastructure, market sophistication, business sophistication, knowledge and technology outputs, and creative outputs. How did we fare? Of course, we're very, very happy about some of the great scores that we got for 2020, particularly in the following pillars, as you can see now, from market sophistication to creative outputs. We're also very happy about some of the upgrades that we saw in terms of the innovation inputs and the innovation outputs. Okay, and you can because I'm gonna be leaving Dr. Vice President Wang a copy of this. You can just review this much later and then use it as a way to also inform your strategic plans if you have to revise them. But this is the thing, there is much work ahead when it comes to the pillar on human capital and research, because this is the way we rank. We were already doing quite okay in 2018 and 2019. But then again, we slid back in 2020 back to 86th. In terms of graduates in science and engineering, the count, we were actually doing quite okay in 2018 and 2019, but we slid back to 22nd in 2020. Same thing with the number of researchers. Look at this. We were actually quite okay in 2015, getting much improvement in 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, and sliding back rather significantly in 2020. In terms of university ranking, of course, we kind of rejoice about the 11 universities that, excuse me, made it to the university listing, but the ranking is still pretty much counting only De La Salle, Ateneo, and UP, and so that's kind of leveling at 51st. But scientific and technical publications, look at this one. We were already doing quite okay in 2016 up to 2019, and we slid back to 125th in 2020. Citable index, H index, so we're kind of leveling up at 54th. In fact, one of the things that I kind of observe in the H index is that this might just be attributed only to a few Filipino authors, and so it's not like across the archipelago we have several authors making it to the citable documents H index. So I don't know if I've shown you this slide, but I'm pretty sure some of you are familiar with this. In terms of the World of Science publications, look at the way the Philippines ranks compared to Indonesia. And by the way, I think it was just like a week and a half ago when I was also one of the plenary speakers, and I was preceded by a minister from Jakarta who was talking about how the Indonesian government is actually plotting this whole publications distribution among universities as if they were plotting a battle, you know? So I think we probably have to kind of take on that aura as well, or kind of a mindset as well, that in the global knowledge economy, really knowledge is power. And hence, I think for higher education leaders like President Penaso, there's much in their hands to make sure that this is steered in the right direction, and constantly providing the inspiration and the stimulus for the rest of the team. Look at this, the trend map of publication volume, again, 2000 to 2018. We see here the Philippines even having a slight dip compared to what the other countries are having. There's a slight dip as well for Indonesia, but that's compared to where they are now. There it's still we're still kind of far off. So why am I saying all of these things? I'm saying this because according to the Global Innovation Index, the GII scores in human capital and research and knowledge and technology outputs are crucial because they reflect the country's fundamental process as well as system of developing and enriching the innovation capabilities of its human resources. And to a large extent, they mirror the inputs of higher ed, with the knowledge and technology outputs as both direct and indirect products of those inputs. These intangible assets that comprise intellectual capital, such as knowledge, patents, and innovation, now represent the wellspring of a nation's wealth, sets of competencies and capabilities that are deemed essential for economic growth, competitive advantage, human development, and overall quality of life. The reason why I kind of just really took it out from the Global Innovation Index report, it's because I thought that if I cascade it to higher education institutions, public or private, that this can actually provide a solid rationale as to why there's got to be great investments in human capital and research. But then again, we say that, we can get comfortable and not do anything. We can get comfortable and still enjoy some of the benefits that we have. But as John Dryden would say, we first make our habits and then our habits make us. And so I think the central message that we have in this discussion is that building the research and innovation culture in Caraga State would entail, an appreciation of the seamless interaction and interrelatedness of all of these elements: the institutional vision and goals, the faculty preparedness, capabilities, and mindset. Certainly, leadership and management. As you very well know, management is different from leadership. There's also the infrastructure, both the hard and the soft. Now, for me, the process, content, and outputs, they're just like icing on the cake. But what's more important is how do you kind of organizationally uh, get ourselves together so that we're one in mind and spirit in really building this culture, a common set of beliefs and attitudes and valuing in Caraga State. That I think it matters a lot. Do you need a speaker like me to talk about it? Maybe not. Maybe an organizational guy can help the faculty better reflect on how best to get get their essences into the spirit that President Penaso or President Ton would like you to have. And so, but the whole important thing is the whole appreciation of this, because later on you would see that even in the innovation diagnostics that the PASUK had conducted, all of these things were considered. And so President Wang was alluding to the project that the PASUK had under PASUK PC, and that's the innovation diagnostics of soups, because as we said, what gets measured gets managed. And so when PASUK PC asked the USAID Stride for technical assistance, immediately I kind of conceptualized of a project that would be reflective of this kind of framework, or that would mirror the elements in this framework. And so the end in mind, or the outcome that we were thinking, is that it's not so much the process of diagnosing as looking at the possible outcomes as a result of the diagnosing, such as culture change, a systems driven mind shift among all souk leaders, or let's say in the case of the present company, Caraga state leaders, in steering science, technology, and innovation towards globally accepted standards. Again, culture change. We're hoping that by subjecting ourselves and reflecting on the results of the diagnostics, we can have an express demand from everyone, leaders included, for improved performance metrics that recognize academic, economic, policy, and social impacts. That and this one basically is still pretty much consistent with the first slide that I showed you about the research and innovation continuum. Again, and in mind is that we're hoping that that because it's all about the spirit, that it can influence work ethos and ethics, an up-to-date comprehensive assessment of the state of knowledge creation and innovation in souks. You know, are we doing the research also as honestly as we could, as methodologically accurate as we should, and as relevant, socially relevant as we should? So this was the dashboard of research and innovation readiness that we came up with. And so while it is true that I came up with an initial conceptualization, it also took us like no less than 6 consultations with various souk presidents, members of the PASUK board, representatives from souks 1, 2, 3, and 4, together with representatives from the University of the Philippines system, Diliman, Visayas, Mindanao. They were all there to basically take a look at this mix of innovation and research and innovation readiness indices. So we were taking a look at leadership, management, innovation support, infrastructure, linkages and partnerships, basic and applied research, industry-facing research, 21st century competencies in research, 21st century facing curriculum, industry-facing curriculum, industry-facing extension, community-facing extension, and then of course, the non-negotiable global research innovation metrics. So these were the 12 pillars, so to speak, that we all agreed to measure or to take a look at. Um, I must give a caveat that this wasn't meant to judge a souk. After all, the instrument was binary and dichotomous set of responses. And also, they really are meant for self-diagnosis, a material for institutional self-reflection, so to speak. I used to say that it's an examination of conscience, like a confession. Um, so in summary, we kind of put, and this is not exhaustive, we kind of put together, the categories, the human capital indices, the structural capital indices, and the relational capital indices. It's just like this. This is a checklist, and then we're asking the souks to just tick off whatever it is that they have or they don't have. you know so you may be planning for it or trying to aspire for it, but if you don't have it, we don't have it. It was a very simple instruction. So this was the result, the website of the souk self-reported assessment on the innovation pillars. So for all souks, as you can see, when it comes to the nitty-gritty really of implementing and acting or driving into action research and innovation, then there's a very low score, self-reported low score. So it's hovering around the 1.0 axis. Same thing with basic and applied research, industry-facing research, and 21st century teaching. You know, so again, I don't have an easy analysis as to why these are, but our agreement with PASUK is that the individual SUKs will take a look at this very carefully and then examine as to why their scores, self-reported scores, are as such, given the indices that we've laid out. So this is for all SUKs, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And essentially, again, you would see low, average, and high. You can see the preponderances of averages as well as lows, but certainly very, very few self-reported highs. So another way of looking at the snapshot is that across all SUKs, 1, 2, 3, and 4 levels, the light colored ones would represent some of the areas of deficit, such as management. It's across the board. Industry-facing research, it's across the board. Industry-facing curriculum and 21st century facing curriculum, again, it's across the board. Certainly, uh, some deficits here and there expressed by SUK levels 4 in terms of basic and applied research, which is understandable, maybe because they're aspiring for more. And then for SUK level 1, understandable because they're actually starting to just have one. So, but again, this snapshot is rather telling of where we all are in general across all SUKs and in the country, and which I think gives us no surprise as to why the Global Innovation Index in human capital development and research is also as such, right? So I think there is now a little bit of some level of consistency in the data that we see. So again, we see in here, we kind of singled out where the low self-reported scores are. So that's in management, linkages and partnerships, basic and applied research, industry-facing research, industry-facing curriculum, and 21st century curriculum. This is for Caraga State. This is how you reported your scores. And so, and I'm not going to provide any analysis because I think to the extent that this is probably the first time that you're seeing this web chart for yourself, I think it's a good material enough to trigger a lot of reflection. But certainly, when you try to compare it with your counterparts in level 4 SUKs, this is how your web compares with the level 4 SUKs, and then again, for all SUKs, this is how you compare. Since I'm leaving Dr. Wang a copy of this, I'm pretty sure this will trigger a lot of departmental discussions and exciting plans for the future. But again, this is also how you rated yourself. Average for leadership, average for 21st century competencies in research, and average for industry-facing extension. I'm not quite sure if you're beating yourself too much here, or like you're trying to be too hard on yourselves, but this is how you reported your scores. And so um, uh, I will leave it up really to for Dr. Wang to kind of come up with a program for you to reflect on these scores, okay? But I'm going to also flash to you some of the variables that were asked of you in terms of, let's say, this particular variable on leadership, expectations, and characteristics. So you were just being asked to basically tick off. Do you have an incentive system for STI research? Did you articulate your STI research in your strategic plan? Did you establish a college or university research council? Did you, let's say, align your research programs with Industry 4.0? You can go through these elements as also a way, because this is a year-end assessment. I think this is gonna be helpful. As well, I can send Dr. Wang a copy of the innovation diagnostic tool where we have the indices for all 12. What I'm doing here right now is to just highlight, the pillar on leadership, the pillar on basic and applied research, you know, and the pillar on the global research innovation initiatives. Bear in mind that our three statistical consultants from University of the Philippines, Diliman, Los Baños, they kind of agglomerated this. So you will see in the diagnostic tool a repetition of the various indices. But then again, in the process, they were agglomerating some of the indices to form one major variable, and as such, this is an agglomeration of the variable on global research and innovation initiatives, which, by the way, is not based on soup leveling. So, in other words, in the previous, how do you call this? In the previous pillars, there was a little bit of a marrying of soup leveling indices and global indices. But for the global research initiatives, innovation initiatives, we only based it on Times Higher Education, QS, and the Global Innovation Index. So in other words, if we really are looking at our how do you call it, performance, then the globally, vis-a-vis how the rest of the world works, then the global research innovation initiatives is a good set of indices. Okay, so having said that, we also, in the PASUK presentation, we came up with several, how do you call this, suggestions in terms of action points, just so we can level up the performance in leadership. We were talking about perhaps leadership may have to be re-steered, reimagined, or recast in light of the demands of the 21st century, particularly in the context of the volatility and uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity environments, especially in the environment that we're living now. And so, to the extent that leaders are able to, given the outcomes such as a roadmap, innovation goals, strategic initiatives, to the extent that leaders can manifest strategic foresight, articulate a vision and mission and purpose of the university, have some kind of a horizons thinking, pushing the frontiers, insights from design thinking, having a much more end-to-end way of looking at operations and relationships. I say a corporate strategy, or let's say a strategy that looks at the bottom line and whether or not we're gonna have some returns, etc. So those things are probably demanded, and as such would be the necessary characteristics of the leaders of higher ed. And so again, this is just a rundown of the kind of uh, the demands on leadership, the ability to react quickly to ongoing changes amidst unpredictability, ability to take action even without any kind of guarantee of certainty, ability to adapt to the dynamic and interdependent processes and environments, and of course, ability to deal with the unfamiliar, anything that's even outside of the expertise. And by the way, this is not something that's just demanded of President Ton. This is something that's demanded of everyone, because everyone is a leader. Everyone has to, I should say, cultivate the leadership, the leader in them, and be able to manifest this in everyday decision making, in everyday interactions. So this is not something that's just, I should say, ensconced on the president. This is something that everybody should take a responsibility for. And as such, I think it's good that you're talking about year-end assessment, so that it gives us an idea as to, okay, where do we go? Where do we go next? At the different tiers of leadership and management, how do we deal with this? given the fact that indeed this is the kind of environment that we now face. What are these uncertainties? What are these volatilities? We also have to identify them, because it's not just a matter of saying it's a volatile environment. We have to know, specifically what is so volatile, what is so complex, what is so ambiguous, what are those things that we believe we don't know yet. That's an ironic question to ask, but anything that demands of us to anticipate, to even imagine and reimagine, I think those are the things that's necessary in the discussions later on. So again, all types of leaders, not just the very top leader, from responding to recovery, from dealing with the unpredictable to the so-called interim normal. So all of these things will probably have to be considered. This is from Deloitte, and the good thing about Deloitte is that from time to time they come up with this meta-analysis of leadership types, leadership modalities, ways of dealing with situations. And so given this global, I should say, scenarios, and exactly this is what they have observed from Europe to Asia, I think it would make sense to also look at this frame as a useful tool for us to reflect on. What is our attitude? Are we just reacting, or are we reinventing? What is our planning mode? Are we just doing habituated planning or contingency planning? I call it inbox planning. Whatever is your inbox, you act on it, as opposed to scenario planning. About management, is it day-to-day crisis management, or are we kind of looking at in terms of programmatic, more systems design and design thinking management? Are we also market facing, looking at our future customers, etc.? Remember, I just saw that there's a house bill that's being bandied about, that there's going to be free tuition as well for private universities. And I was just thinking, now we have to face a different kind of market again for SUPs, if and when there's indeed tuition subsidy for private education. So this whole whitewater, ever-changing, dynamic, I call it the Niagara Falls of management. It never ends. It's constantly whirling and churning. So I think that's the kind of leadership attitude or mindset that we have to take at all levels. Talking about academic excellence and innovations, which you already are all doing as a result of the crisis situation, the digitalization of classroom teaching, or the digital transformation of learning and learning assessments. All these things, we're doing that. But for me, that's a process. What's more important is that is our mindset, or is our view uh, dealing with the outcomes, such as these are the ins and outs, the demands for jobs that will rise over the next 5 years. Um, so these are the increasing demand in terms of the workforce, and these are the decreasing demands. So of course, we have to probably marry these kinds of competencies with the kind of course offerings that we have, but certainly whether they are in agronomy or fisheries or forestry, or however it is, that certainly some of the competencies that ought to be embedded in some of the traditional program offerings that we have, we will have to rethink those, because this is the future of jobs that's being predicted by the World Economic Forum. Okay, I just kind of magnify it in this slide, you know. So I don't think these are disciplinal. I think these are interdisciplinary competencies and characteristics that we need to embed in our program offerings in order to build a niche for Caraga State, or in order to make sense for Caraga State to that is actually addressing the needs of the stakeholders within the region. So I guess we call it the programming, the human capital of the future. Universities need to prepare graduates for careers they define for themselves. Again, this is part of the sea change that's needed to modernize universities as they play a crucial role building jobs and industries needed for economic recovery. So again, the top skills of 2025, I was advising also another state university, Batangas State University under President Tirso. I told him, just do not describe your engineering programs as such. You probably have to describe your engineering programs and all programs for that matter in Caraga State as inculcating the following skills. Yes, we're producing great technically competent agriculturists, foresters, engineers, etc. But we also are ensuring that they can exhibit or manifest the following skills that are needed a few years from now, just 5 years from now, in fact. So problem solving, self-management, interaction with people, technology use and development. Now, talking about the most important point for this discussion, we're also talking about ensuring that the university, Caraga, for that matter, has a very well articulated set of research agenda. I keep on saying that yes, there is a national harmonized research agenda, but harmonizing it is really for the sake of both fiscal and budgetary efficiency. So there's no duplication, replication, etc. And that's good. But then again, Caraga as an independent higher education institution can also explore other ways, can also tap other resources so that it can go beyond the national harmonized research agenda. After all, it's in the business of knowledge generation. And so maybe knowledge generation would entail linking up with Japanese colleagues or colleagues from Singapore or Malaysia or Australia or the United Kingdom or Netherlands, and sometimes they don't necessarily fit very neatly into the national harmonized research agenda. But then again, those aspects too are just as important in setting the university research directions and programs. And so this is what we call the structural adjustments um, internally that we have to do within the university so that we both fulfill statutory, regulatory compliances and expectations. But at the same time, there's got to be some structural adjustments so that we also get to converse with our counterparts in various parts of the world. And so I think doing that kind of balance is not impossible. I think there it's given the global exposures that the present company has had, through the years. I'm pretty sure this is not new to you, and that you can actually do it even as we talk right now. So all I'm trying to say is that I think a little bit of a risk in expressing this, manifesting this in a daily research life of every faculty and staff and student will be good. Both the statutory expectations and the global expectations, I think it's going to be kind of exciting. Um, this is something I lifted from my colleague, Dr. CP David. He's a very firm advocate of the 6Ps and beyond for DOST performance assessment of particularly of the grantees. And he said that academic pathway is only one pathway. Sure, we want to see them in journals and publications. The way I see this, President Ton, is that you can have an army of faculty that's doing academic pathway, well and good. You can also have an army of faculty doing the economic pathway, well and good, or policy pathway, or civic pathway. In the end, they're all under the Caraga State Army, So but each one is just assigned something to work on, but institutionally it's one reporting. I don't know if I'm making sense, but it's just like piecing out, because we can't be everything all at once. I'm just really pretty sure that one of the faculty is so good in influencing a senator, a legislator, a mayor, a barangay captain, but maybe kind of not so good in the academic pathway. But he's still carrying the flag. He or she is still carrying the flag for Caraga State. I'm pretty sure that there's one faculty who's so good in coming up with, let's say, advising some livelihood development or cooperative group, or even an industry, but it's not so good in coming up with journal articles. But so we recognize them for their talents. And certainly, the ideal model of a faculty is the one who can cut across, and that's also possible. You can have this brilliant faculty or very agile faculty who can do all four, and that's fine. So, but for me, a more strategic, tactical way of positioning Caraga State is to identify where the strengths are. So I have an army here, army there, army there. Then I have also an army that can do all four, you know, makes everything alive and exciting and happy and fun for everyone. And at the same time, inclusive, and we get to be less judgmental too of others because each one has something to contribute to the institution. That I think is a way to build research and innovation culture, because we're trying to uh, come up with an affirming culture. And that's really part of the organizational change that we want to see. So it's not just a matter of saying you do this, expectation of X number of articles, etc., etc. I think if there is a specific assignment, based on a good reading of capabilities and interest, I think it will be fun for everyone. We probably just have to explore other ways of positioning the university. I'm almost done, friends. So again, technologies and innovations for the public good. Essentially, this is all about our extension um, mandate. And all I say that all this talk about industry partnerships, community partnerships, LGU partnerships, these are just means. These are just ways of creating knowledge again. It's under the rubric of knowledge co-creation, because the idea being it can't be just everything being cooked up in campus, but that we can actually learn every day from our partners, big or small, industry, LGUs, civil society organization, and in the end, advance entrepreneurship and partnerships. And we will never run out really of topics. As I was saying, the social development goals, will always be a provider of insights, ideas. So if everybody is at the ideation stage as to what to research on, what to innovate on, I think the SDGs are a good take-off point. And so I think I like this um, presentation by the UNESCO. How do the SDGs help universities, and how can universities help the SDGs? In fact, there's even a much more what do you call this, vivid illustration on the things that universities can do in light of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we've not really run out of such examples, because in August this year, I'm pretty sure some of you attended it, there was the PASUK Stride presentation of the Compendium of COVID-19 Research Extension Works of SUCS. And the good thing about it is that, the collaboration was so palpable. There was a lot of new ideas that came out. And the thing is that you can't be so judgmental about the work, because we were just kind of responding to the situation as we saw them, which is, I think, exactly what the whole point of innovation is, right? Responding to coming up with new things as we see them, coming up with solutions as we see problems in the real world. there can be disruptive innovations, there can be sustaining innovations, there can be breakthrough innovations. I'm pretty sure Dr. Jeffrey knows about all of this, can lecture to you about all of this on and on. But the idea being is that, sources of experiences, what to innovate on, what to research on, is staring at us, as true scientists, what we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we smell, what we taste, anything that is right in front of us, how we feel about it, is something that we can respond to. This is Dr. Yuher. Last year in Boston at the Harvard School of Medicine, I was invited by the SAW system to attend this conference on the science in the age of experience. And what I like about this, because look at him, of course, he's an amputee, but a very, very agile one, because he's a rock climber, a very good one at that, a very avid one. At the same time, he's a physicist and a material scientist. And then he met an accident while rock climbing, but he was instructing his surgeons that, there's a particular vein that you should not touch, or not cut, so that even if I'm wearing prosthesis, it will still allow me to feel the rocks, you know, be very sentient about the terrain and everything. And they were following. This is of course Harvard and MIT. I think where the impossible can be made possible, and so they did just that. And as a result of it, new science came out. you know it was mainly because of somebody, a patient at this time, not just a co-professor wanting to is still experience the same kind of high or euphoria that he experiences whenever his feet would touch the rocks. And so that's exactly what they did. And so the whole conference was all about how do you actually come up with new programs in universities, because programs are actually born out of experience, everyday experience from everyday individuals. It just so happened that he's a physicist and an engineer, so they, but it can be anybody. And so talking about anybody, there are these two Stanford University graduates who are now in the Philippines. Um, One, the lady's name is Tamara Actor, and and the other one is David Cutler. They're very good friends of Dr. C.P. David, and you know what? They're here because they came up with the so-called nutshell coolers made from coconuts. And though basically now they're saying that because of these nutshell coolers, it would be easy to actually store the tunas and other kinds of fish, for sale, and that the fisher folks don't necessarily have to be dependent on the usual more expensive cooling uh, materials or equipment. And so they're into it. So again, look at these two guys. They're from the United States. They kind of immerse themselves here in the Philippines. They're from Stanford, and they came up with this. And so I think it's the same thing that I'm pretty sure a lot of you are doing this as well, and similar processes. But all I'm trying to say is to highlight that what we do, like many of us at Caraga State, is really a product of every day. What we see, what we taste, what we experience. And so you know mahirap naman kasi to kind of say, let's do a program on this. I like, let's say, nutshell coolers, uh, Bachelor of Science in Nutshell Cooling, pero walang COPC yan at walang technical panel. O paano na lang yan, it becomes a little bit of what, are we still there? Are we actually in the 21st century if we're still talking pretty much about COPCs and technical panels and PRCs? It just negates the whole spirit of innovation. Para sa akin, it just so counterproductive to creative thinking, um, for me. But that's a challenge I throw to everybody I talk to, that perhaps there's got to be a way for us to also change the mindset of those who manage or govern the statutes and the regulations of higher ed. Okay, the regional inclusive innovation centers, of which I am involved in, at the DTI and the OST, I'm highlighting it because I think it's a very viable forum for actually getting our radars open to what the other stakeholders need and are talking about, whether they are from funders, service providers, large, small, medium enterprises or startups, RD labs, accelerators, everybody. So there's just so many actors now, and I think our role as Caraga State is to also take a look or consider this forum as another source of knowledge, as a viable platform for partnership and knowledge creation and knowledge transfer. As Jeff would know a lot more, but certainly there are so many platforms that abound now, and it would be quite a shame if we don't take advantage of those platforms. So the RICS, and because USAID Stride is going to be much more engaged in 2021, I think the RICS would be one serious consideration for us. Also, of course, in your RDCs, RRDICs, and all sorts of multilateral regional talks, even SICARD, are probably talking about regional growth clusters. And again, they're a source of information, a source of inspiration for research, innovation, and extension engagements. And to take a look at this in terms of the whole continuum also, not just in terms of silos. Ito research lang, ito innovation, ito extension. But to take a look at that, as I have presented in the first slide, and the iterative process that by which it occurs. So yeah, you can offer some ideas, but then again, it can be cross-checked, critiqued, revised, enhanced, over beer, over wine, over anything, by your colleagues from the RDCs, by your colleagues from civil society, from business, etc. All of which I think redound to even better solutions for the public good. So in terms of crafting, what's really the extension framework? I think this is the extension framework, because extension is not just extending whatever it is that you've learned and wanted to share. It's also putting it back in the university setting, whatever it is that we've learned and we've heard, or let's say given feedback about. So I think that's the whole point of that very iterative continuum process of research, innovation, and extension. Okay, so this one. Okay, these are a few of my last slides. At the end of the day, how do you build a research and innovation culture? You know, I say that it's more than just the research and innovator. You have to have an entrepreneurial researcher innovator. When I say entrepreneurial, it's not just about money making, but it's about being creative enough to generate your own resources, not to be too dependent, let's say, on traditional sources, but to take a look at other ways of sourcing it. You can leverage your expertise by grouping together, by banding together, and because when you leverage and agglomerate, you become a magnet for other institutions and entities looking for groups. That's the reason why, my friends, it's important for us to take advantage of the digital commons, because the digital commons, like waving the flag to the world. Hey, look at here. We are a Caraga State group here, and we're doing this, and we give you the spotlight, we give you the volume, we give you the megaphone to announce to the world what you're doing. That's leveraging resources. That's leveraging expertise. You become a magnet. Your mass becomes so much that you attract other stars, right? For those of you who know physics, I'm pretty lame at this, I'm pretty sure, but I'm pretty sure you know what I'm trying to say. You consolidate everything. You also gain a lot, you also have to cultivate a lot of research management competencies, managing your monies well, your grants well, managing your staff well, so that there's no attrition, resignation, so the staff that you train can be with you for 3 years instead of them falling off after a few months. Positioning your research, not talking about it the way you want to talk about it, but the way you want your customer to understand it, I think is good, you know? So, um, one of the ways by which, by the way, di ba, pag binibigyan tayo ng grant ng DOST, kahit na gusto mong sabihin na crazy brand yung na-invento mo or na-innovate mo, ay hindi ka papapayagan kasi kailangan one for all, medicine for one, di ba? Parang may ganun na klaseng, kasi nga grant eh, di ba? Whereas if you're on your own, you can come up with almost any kind of crazy branding, di ba? Which I think which is more customer friendly, much more user friendly, even better revenues for you. But ang ganda-ganda nga nung gamot mo, tapos tinawag naman na medical for all, ay parang wala, di ba? Kasi may nationalistic bent eh. Okay naman yon. Naintindihan ko kasi gobyerno yon eh. But if beyond that, you can come up with something else, it is much better. You know? Uh, and you have Iris. You can always come to Iris and we can help you market your products, come up with crazy marketing ideas, put it on the digital commons platform, wave it to the world, etc., etc. That's ang tawag namin sa Iris silungan. If it's not gonna work in the ordinary traditional platforms, do it with us, and then we give you because after all, you know, sabi ko noon nung nasa CHED ako, kahit tumanda ako dito sa CHED, and I cannot do that because I'm not a career officer anyway. I don't think it will ever change, you know. So anybody who retires here will probably see the same kind of situation over and over again. It's like a movie that you keep on seeing the same scenes over and over again. But there's got to be an entrepreneurial way of looking at the world now. Collaboration, frontier seeking, risk taking, all of these things are very, very important for us to really make a mark in the world. I like this one. That's 2 slides. What's the difference between a genie and a research scientist? A genie is the one that grants wishes. The research scientist is the other that wishes for grants. Sorry, kasali na ako dyan, pero we want to be both, okay? And I think there is no question that we're talking about how do we become both. So it's not an either or. So these are some homeworks that we need to do in the research office. You know, a need for systematic and detailed documentation of inputs, outputs, and outcomes. And I already gave you, by the way, this is from this is both a compendium from the World Economic Forum, the GII, and QS. So you won't be you won't be at a loss as to what to document, what to file, what to categorize. They're already giving you how to measure these indices or these documents. Okay, so so I think this is a very good guide, and I was suggesting to PASUK under President Tirso that if there can be a capability building program for SUKs to just kind of orient every SUK, what to file, what to look for, what to document, etc., so that if somebody says, okay, Philippines, report your outputs, it's easier for us to do so. Same thing here. This is from the Times Higher Education. You know, they're already giving us what are the things to report on in terms of the quantitative indicators, etc. And so these are also all included in the diagnostic tool. So again, these are homeworks. You know, it does not even mean that We're going to get away from the aspirational things that I was talking to you about. But the nitty-gritty we still have to pay attention to. Number of patents, number of licenses, number of spin-offs, because this is language. When somebody asks you, so what are you doing? This is exactly the kind of uh, coding that we have to employ. Okay, in the end, friends, it's really all about the world of connectedness and collaboration. This is not even the new normal. It has always been what should be. To generate new knowledge, come up with new products, innovations, ideas, one can no longer be on one's own. It takes collaboration with a social scientist, with a creative artist, with a mathematician, with a historian. It takes a lot of multi-dimensional way of looking at a new idea. So again, the iterative way is there is an issue, we investigate, we imagine, inspire, interpret, integrate it, maybe come up with resources to make sure it happens, implement it, make sure we have some impact. Um, if there are errors, then we do it again. We take the risk, we do it again. We go through the whole iterative process again. Meanwhile, being friendly with each other, drinking with each other, informing, interacting, involving with each other amidst all of this crazy ideation events, that's exactly what we should be doing all the time. And I'm not quite sure how Dr. Wang is going to provide KPIs or performance metrics for the drinking that I just mentioned. But just joking. But that's just to give you an idea that in the end, research and innovation and academia is really the right vocation for all of us because it can be fun, a lot of fun. And so we say that we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And I say thank you very much, Caraga State, President Ton, Dr. Wang, all you, my friends, thank you for inviting me again, and Merry Christmas, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juanillo, for a very informative and insightful talk. So at this point, let us move on to the awarding of certificate to the resource speaker. So let me read to you the citation first. Republic of the Philippines, Caraga State University, Butuan City awards this certificate of recognition to Dr. Napoleon K. Juanillo for sharing his expertise and valuable inputs as resource speaker during the 2020 Research, Development, Innovation, and Extension Year-End Assessment, given this 18th of December 2020 at the Caraga State University, Ampayon, Butuan City. Signed, Vice President for Research, Innovations, and Extension, Dr. Rowena P. Varela, and the University President, Anthony M. Penaso. Congratulations, Sir Juanillo, and thank you so much.